Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Seekho or Samjo, organized by BMPA and Print Week India in association with SIS GST and GIPT. This is the second session of Seekho or Samjo in 2016. We have with us Mr. Vishnu Kamath, Vice President Sales, Advanced Graphic Systems, AGS. Vishnu sir is a color expert. In today's session, he will cover key aspects of color matching and troubleshooting associated with it. He will also speak about the basic of spectrophotometer and densitometer and their correct usage. Join me in welcoming Vishnu sir at Seekho or Samjo. I would now request our professor, Mr. Gaurav Fasate, to felicitate Mr. Vishnu sir on the stage, please.
Now this plate, if you are a red and a green colorblind, then this number you cannot see. Very simple, right? Because the combination of red and green. And if you're not able to see red and green, everything is just a gray dot for you. And hence, they then would term you as a red-green colorblind person. Understood? That's how the plates are used. So it's out of the blue moon, yeah? Okay. So, if you look at the last image that we saw, the brain, RGB, breaking down into CM, 3 channels, and then going to the brain to interpret. Now the same theory, okay, the same fundamental of opponent color theory was used by a body called as CIE, okay. Now this name CIE is something that you need to remember, and remember. Because that is what we are even doing today. So this system is still valid even today. So what did CIE did? Now this is basically a French commission. Yeah, actually you pronounce it in French, which we can't do, but it's simple as Commission Internationale d'Éclairage. As English we pronounce it that way, but the French guys pronounce it in a different way. It's a French commission basically. So what they did, they said, okay, fine, let's try to standardize a few things so that everywhere in the world people see the color the same way, which is right? If I see maybe this gentleman's shirt over here as green, okay, he's dark, that doesn't matter, but his shirt is green, okay? So, I see it as maybe a yellowish green. Maybe somebody else would say, sir, it is greenish green. I don't know if that color exists. Somebody will say it's a bluish green, right? Now, everybody would interpret the same color in a different way. So, what did CI say? Thanks, Santosh. So, what did CI say? CI said, let's standardize on certain parameters and remove as much variables as possible in seeing the color. Simple? Yeah? If I standardize the light, if I standardize the observer, the substrate, then a lot of things gets eliminated. The subjectivity is removed, kind of, You get objective about what you're seeing. So what did they do? They standardize illuminance. Illuminance is nothing but light source. Yeah? In color language they call it illuminance because illuminance may not exist physically. Illuminants may not exist physically, they are just theoretical sometimes. So they are called as illuminants and not light sources. Light sources can be physically there or they are physically present. But illuminants may or may not be physically present. They're just mathematical calculations. Yeah? Observer, a person like me or him or you, somebody over here, an observer, yeah? And something called as primaries. What did CIE do? They said, boss, let's try to find out over the whole world, what are the various light sources used? Or under what various light sources do we see color? Or can we make a light source, which is an illuminant, so that somebody in the future may start using it. So that's how they came up with these light sources over here, these illuminants over here. A, it does exist. This yellow bulb that you see is incandescent light, A, tungsten halogen, yeah, the yellow bulbs that we use. You have B, C, D55, D65, D75, there's a D50 also, yeah? All these light sources. Now, the CWF over here is the cool white fluorescent CFL that we use, is that. The TL84 are the tube lights that we use. Yeah, and D65 is the natural daylight that you find outside. Clear? So they standardized on it. They said that, boss, a D65 illuminant will have these parameters fixed. Whoever in the world will see a color under D65 will see it under these parameters only. So whether I see a color here under D65 or whether I see a color in the US under D65, the light source remains the same. Clear? Perfect? Okay. Then the observer. Obviously, CI could not use one of us as an observer because we are again subjective to a lot of things. Mood, our vision, our age, ladies, gents, everybody, they see color in a different way. So what did CI do? They did a test. They said, okay, let's try to standardize on an observer angle. Means the angle at which the observer sees the substrate. Okay. So they came up with a test and they did a test to find out that there's this test lamp over here. There's a small partition with a small slit. Yeah. The black partition over here. So the below and the upper are different from each other. They are cut off from each other. Now there's a test lamp over here. A test lamp. Any test lamp. So they tried to match this test lamp with a combination of these three. So increasing or decreasing the wavelength of these red, green and blue. They tried to get the same color as the test lamp. And then they observed that at what angle they found that particular color. So they may have taken thousands of people like you and me. They did the test and then they realized that there are two angles at which an observer can be set, and those were a 2-degree observer and a 10-degree observer. Even today in spectrophotometry, when you do a color measurement, it is very, 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 very important to set what is the observer angle at which you are measuring the color, without which there is no measurement which happens today. Very clear? Why this test was done, how it was done, why 2-degree, 10-degree, nobody knows. All these were tests and the test results were 2-degree, 10-degree basically. Okay? Perfect. So obviously from here you can understand that a 2-degree observer is a very small range. And a 10-degree observer is a much bigger range. Yeah. So different industries use different observer angles. In printing, we use 2 degrees. Very commonly use 2 degrees. In the other industries like the paint, textiles, automobiles, they use the 10-degree observer angle. We use the 2-degree observer angle. Again, reason why? Nobody knows. It's just going on for years. Yeah. Okay. The next part was defining something called as, now, you know, they have set, so they have set the observer, they have set the illuminant, everything done. But then the result, what you get out of it, has to be interpreted somehow or the other, right? So it's like, I go to a shop to buy a shirt, yeah, and I walk into one store, I find a nice blue shirt, I talk about blue because I love blue, yeah. I find a blue shirt, I ask what's the price for that, and the gentleman says about 300 rupees. So what I do, I go to the other shop, try to find the same kind of color, maybe a different brand. What's the price? He says 250 rupees. Now what happens? I get a reference point to compare, right? So if I only forgetting the price, if I'm only trying to compare color, it is difficult, right? Now that color needs to be quantified into something, right? And that something could be money for us. Similarly, these tests which were done, the observer, the illuminant, now they have to be interpreted, right? If they are not interpreted, then what's the use of all these tests? Are you getting my point? In physics, for that matter, if you do a test, or in chemistry, if you do a laboratory test, there's a final conclusion, right? या सिर्फ नाम के लिए टेस्ट कर रहे हैं अपन, क्या एंड में आ रहा है भगवान जाने अपने को. We do it to get a conclusion, right? So that conclusion was basically something called as X, Y, and Z, which was basically red, green, and blue. Yeah, very initial study that which was done. So they got this formula done, which said that, okay, fine, if you do this formula, then you get the Z value. If you do this formula, you get the Y value. If you do this formula, you get the X value. Yeah. Now in this equation, the E and the X, okay, the E, which is the spectral power distribution of the illuminant, that's basically the curve. Okay, that's basically the curve of the light, and the standard observer that we spoke about right now, 2 degree, 10 degree, yeah, that value, as I said, they are fixed. That's published in the books. So if you buy a CIE book or an ASTM book, American Standard of Testing Materials, ASTM, these values of E and X are mentioned in those books, and which are the same worldwide. Yeah. So the only variable parameter in these equations were R, which is nothing but the reflectance of the color. What color is reflected back? Yeah. Obviously, you understand that what color we see is the reflected light back, right? It's not the transmitted light. We see the reflected light back. So that R was basically the reflection, and that's how the value is to put in the R. E and X were fixed. R changes, you get the value of X, and the Y and the Z. Clear? But then over a period of time, it was found that this has a lot of limitations. By defining the color only in X, Y, Z, okay, it was not kind of working for them. So initially when CI started, they said, boss, if the XYZ value of the standard and the XYZ value of the sample is the same, okay, under the same illuminant and observer, means I measure my standard at say 10 degree D65 illuminant, I get a value say 20. I measure my sample at D65 10 degree illuminant, I get a value 21. So difference is 1, pass, or 20, pass. If it is 30, oh, it's fail. Simple calculation. I said 200, 250, 300 rupees, I know the difference. Similarly over here. So the illuminant and the observer were maintained the same, but obviously the color reflectance changes, right? That's the reason why you have a standard measurement and a sample measurement. Yeah? So when they were the same, CI said the color matches. And when they are not the same, they said the color does not match. Okay? Wonderful. But I said this particular theory had a lot of limitations. Yeah? We don't get into the limitations now, but a lot of limitations which were found over a period of time. And then CI decided, oh, now we need to move ahead. And that's how they realized the opponent color theory. You remember the opponent color theory? RGB breaks up into light green, red green, light dark, and yellow blue channels. They said, let's try to work on those theories. And that's when they came up upon something called as LABCNH. Now LABCNH is a theory, is a fundamental, is a basic, which is still used even today and would be used for the next 100 years to go probably. Yeah. So this is the base of all color measurements today in the world. So what is LAB? So it's basically a globe. Yeah, a circle, a globe. So there's an x-axis, yeah, there's a y-axis and a z-axis. Okay, so x, y, and z. Yeah. If I put it on a 2D, that's the x and y. Yeah. So you have blue, yellow, red, and green, and the z is like this, which is nothing but the light and dark. Yeah. So I think I have a slide explaining that probably. Okay. Okay. So LAB, right? L stands for light and dark. Yeah. B stands for red and green. Red and green. Okay. Sorry. A stands for red and green, and B stands for yellow and blue. LAB. L light dark, A, red and green, and B, yellow and blue. Please don't forget this ever. This is the complete basic that you need to remember. If you know this, probably you can interpret any color in the world. Light, dark, red, green, yellow, blue, LAB. Clear? Yeah? So that's the reason why here you see all reds, oranges, yellows, greens, cyan, blue, violet. If you look at this circle, you realize that this is nothing but Vibgyor. Violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. This whole circle is what defines LAB. Is it clear? Okay, perfect. Now, two things remain. That's C and H. C is chroma. Chroma is nothing but saturation of color. Higher the value of C means more brighter is the color. The lower the value of C indicates that the color is dull. Yeah? So a bright orange will have a very high C value, where a very dull red will have a very low C value. Yeah? So C is nothing but saturation of your color, and it's basically calculated like this using the Pythagoras theorem. Yeah? So that's your A here and B here, right? So A square plus B square under square root gives you the value of C. So again LAB becomes the basic. You need to know what is the LAB of the color. You can find the C. It's nothing but A square plus B square under square root is value of C. Very simple. So is it clear till here? Any confusion, any questions? Surely? Okay. And that's H, the last component of it. LAB, C and H. H is nothing but hue. H-U-E, hue. Hue is nothing but the basic color, which is violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. Now, each of them have a value. Now, if you measure a red, okay, if you measure a red, you can never get a value of 180 in the H value. H is degrees, it's an angle, yeah? H is an angle. LABC are not angles, they are values. But H is an angle. Okay, because this is obviously, right, this is the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant. 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. So if you have a red color, if I measure a red, I can never have a value of 180 or 190 or 200. It has to be only between 350 to 35 degrees. There's no red in the world which can fall in this quadrant. Why? Because this quadrant is nothing but greens and blues and yellows. Thumb rule, don't think over it. If you get a value, if you have a blue can never have a value which goes from 70 to 105. It can only have a value which goes from maybe about 195 to 285 to maybe about 290, 295 degrees. So when you have a spectrophotometer, when you measure a color, yeah, I think we do have one over here, right? So if you have time later on, you can check one or two colors. You can look at the H value. If you measure a red, it has to be in that range that we are talking about. If you measure a yellow, it has to be in the range that you're talking about. It cannot go beyond that. Is it very clear? So these values are fixed. They are thumb rules. Just follow them. And this helps quite a lot in doing quality control of your incoming raw materials, your inks and everything. Just very short, quickly. For example, if you're matching an orange, okay, you are printing an orange or an orange that you've already printed. Or maybe let's take maybe a KFC red. For all of us to remember, KFC red, I think there's one just around the corner, so everyone knows the KFC red. So let's assume that the KFC red has a value, say about 25 degrees in the H. Now 25 degrees is a very, very, very important number for KFC red. If tomorrow you need to reprint KFC box cartons and you get a ink which has a H value of 30, then it's no more a KFC red anymore. Why? 30 is getting more oranger. But if the value comes to about maybe about 360, will it be acceptable? Still no, because it is getting more and more bluer. So 25 H value of KFC is a very important value for the industry. Just an example. I don't know what's the actual value, but just an example. So H has that importance in our daily life as far as printing goes. Very clear? Yeah, perfect. So if I have to kind of put all colors together, what I see is this: red, oranges, browns in that quadrant, greens, olive greens and yellow greens on this quadrant, blue greens and blues including cyan over here, which is nothing but a blue green. Yeah, your blues, violets, deep reds in this quadrant. You cannot have this over here or this over here. They are fixed. Is this clear? Any questions till here? Very simple, right? Or it's difficult for you to understand? Simple? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
When you're specifying now, I'm in industry, and you said that 35 degree is my angle for that color. So if you are checking it and you have a tolerance between it and
Yeah. Yeah.
so what is the tolerance that we have when
1 or 2 degrees max here and there. Yeah.
it won't create much?
1 or 2 degrees won't create a problem. But if you go 5, 6 degrees here and there, then it's a problem. Okay, so L, A, B, C, H, L light dark, A red green, B yellow blue, C is chroma, saturation, brightness of color, H is hue angle, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, which are basic primary colors. Yeah. Once knowing L, A, B, C, H, the next step is how to find out the difference. Right. So I have a standard L, A, B, C, H, sample L, A, B, C, H. अब वो दोनों L, A, B, C, H का लेके करेंगे क्या? दोनों का डिफरेंस तो फाइंड आउट करना जरूरी है ना. दैट इज योर कलर डिफरेंस. सिंपल, नथिंग टू स्क्रैच योर ब्रेन्स, वेरी सिंपल. Yeah. So LABCH of sample minus LABCH of standard, never the reverse. It's sample minus standard gives you the difference between the two colors, and the difference is difference, very simple. Delta D, whatever you write is the same. You can use a delta or you can use a D, it's the same. Yeah. So the difference in L, difference in A, B, C and H is what we get by subtracting these two numbers, sample minus standard. Yeah, perfect. So now once you do that, obviously depending upon whether the sample value is bigger or smaller, the DL could be, or the DL, DA, DB could be negative and positive both. So logical, yeah. So for example over here, if I take this as a smaller value compared to this, then you're going to end up with a minus sign, and the reverse, you're going to end up with a positive sign. So you need to interpret both these values. Am I right? We can't say I will only interpret the positive. So the negative will say, what wrong did I do? So here, so when the DL, that's the difference in light dark, is positive, it means that your sample is lighter than the standard. When it's negative, your sample is darker than the standard. Simple, right? Light, dark. DA was red and green, right? So the difference will be again redder and greener. So the positive value of DA after the difference is calculated, if it's positive, then it's redder. So the sample is redder than the standard. And when it's negative, the sample is greener than the standard. Again, thumb rules, don't think at all, just follow it. Yeah? DB, positive means the sample is yellower than the standard, and negative means the sample is bluer than the standard. So when you subtract the value, do not forget to put the correct sign. It's negative or positive, because if you forget to put a negative, you're exactly going in the opposite quadrant. If you remember the circle that I showed you, yeah? If you were on the redder side, let's assume, or on the greener side, which is negative, if you forget to put the minus, you go exactly on the opposite side. Because then a positive becomes redder. And for all the colors remains the same. So is this clear? Again, DC is positive, the color is more saturated. DC is negative, it is less saturated. While DH, again, I cannot say that it's more redder or greener or yellower or bluer. It depends upon the color. Yeah. So as I said, if you're talking about KFC red, if 25 degree was the value for KFC red and you end up with 35, then the value is going more positive, right? And if you end up with maybe about 19 or 20 or maybe 15, you're going on the negative side. So that UDH depends on the color that you're interpreting. Is this very clear? LABCH, difference and the interpretation of difference. This is actually everything about basics of color. This is something that needs to go here permanently for you. You can do anything and everything if you know this basic. It's not rocket science at all. It's just simple understanding of the color more scientifically, more theoretically. Clear? Any questions till here? Please clarify if you have. Surely? I've tried to make it as easy as possible. Yeah? Okay. Yeah.
So these measurements, what will come with the help of that machine.
Yes, spectrophoto. We'll come to that. So you'll automatically know that. Next step. So if I take I have a red option only over here, which is good. So LAB of standard, LAB of sample, the difference DL, DA, DB, right? DL is positive 0.5. So it's lighter. Simple. DA is positive 1.45. So it's redder. And DB is negative 3.35. So it's less yellow or more bluer. Simple. The same fundamental that we spoke about is how you interpret it. Is this clear? Perfect? Good. So, color difference interpretation is very important for colorists, obviously, because the whole world fights to get the right color. And when you say the right color, I mean the color difference has to be 0. Right? So, color difference is a very important aspect in any industry where color is important, not specifically in the printing industry for that matter. It could be textiles, automobiles, everywhere, each and every place where color is involved, including food, there delta E plays an important role. Perfect? Good. So, one important thing that we need to understand is that a delta E of 0.2, 0.2 is something called as a just noticeable color difference. That means below 0.2, you practically can't see any color difference with the human eye. The spectrophotometer will tell you it's 0.15 because the spectrophotometer is too accurate. But for a human eye, 0.2 is 0. You cannot see anything less than 0.2. In fact, you even can't see 0.2. But as the value goes up, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 8, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, 5, the distance between the two colors just goes apart. They just go away. And then the colors don't match. Simple? Straight, clear? Okay. After knowing the basics of color, yeah, LABCH, delta E, yeah, the next part we need to understand is instruments available in the industry which help you to measure this data. Yeah. So there are two types of instruments in the industry, very commonly used, but unfortunately also commonly not known to people. I mean, known to people, but not known to people. I know it's confusing, I'll explain to you. So when I get a call from a customer, yeah, so they call up and say, sir, I'm from the printing industry, I want a densitometer. So densitometer is a very colloquial language or a very easy language or generic language कि किसी को भी कुछ भी चाहिए, sir densitometer चाहिए. But people don't realize that there's a lot of difference between a densitometer and a spectrophotometer. Actually, the customer actually needs a spectrophotometer, but he doesn't know what it is. He says, sir, I need a densitometer. So then my next question to him goes, sir, what do you print? He says, sir, I print CMYK, I have a 6-color machine. I print CMYK, I print Pantone. So then my next question is, sir, is Pantone important for you? He says, yes, sir, very important, sir. That's why I'm buying the instrument for. Okay. Giving you this background, let's move ahead. Now you'll know the difference between the two. Yeah, okay. Basic components of a densitometer. I will not get too deep into it. Yeah. So it's basically filters. Light source, same fundamental, light source, substrate, and eye. Now here an eye is basically a detector system. Okay? A light source is a light source inbuilt into the instrument. Yeah? And the substrate is obviously the substrate of the color that we want to measure. Clear? So you have a light source, you have the substrate and the receiver, which is nothing but the eye. Yeah? Here, the instrument works on a simple fundamental of a filter wheel. Yeah? It's a small wheel, a circular wheel with 3 filters in it, red, green and blue. Only 3 filters. And the filter moves at very high speed when the color is measured. And that's how the color is interpreted as, not the color, but a densitometer interprets it in terms of density, dot gain, all that parameters. Now, because of a densitometer only having 3 filters, red, green and blue. Now, anybody has a question? When I say that a densitometer only has 3 filters, red, green and blue. So does it mean that it can only measure red, green and blue? What about the other colors? Can it measure? Can it measure a pink? Or could it be able to measure a pink? Okay. Can it measure a white? Can it measure a orange? Can it measure a purple? The answer is no. Anybody wants to challenge? It cannot. That is the problem. So that's what I explained to the customer who gives me a call, saying that, sir, मुझे डेंसिटोमीटर चाहिए, मेरे पास 6 कलर का मशीन है. मैं डेंसिटोमीटर से, जैसे मैडम ने यहाँ पे बोला, सर मैं पिंक भी उसी से मेजर कर लूँगा मैं, बिकॉज डेंसिटी वैल्यू देगा ही ना वो. But the answer is no, it cannot. Yeah. Simple. All these filters, no, have a range. हर चीज का एक लिमिट होता है ना. आप रबर बैंड लो, उसको खींचो, कितने तक जाएगा वो? उसके बाद टूटेगा ही ना. आप बोलते हो मैं वो छोटे रबर बैंड से यहां से वहां तक उसको खींचूंगा, मैं रबर बैंड जाना ही चाहिए. जाएगा क्या वो? नहीं जाएगा. द सेम वे एवरी फिल्टर इन अ डेंसिटोमीटर हैज अ लिमिट. I can go only from this wavelength to this wavelength only. Maybe a pink is outside the wavelength of that filter. How can it measure it? A purple could be out of the filter value that is there in the instrument. You cannot measure it. So in short, a densitometer cannot measure special colors, or Pantone colors as they are called as, or spot colors as they are called as, or cut colors as they are called as in the industry. It can only measure cyan, magenta, yellow, black, which is your printer's primaries. Okay, or the color with which most of the printing happens today, cyan, magenta, yellow and black, because these filters which are there are good enough to only capture the cyan, magenta, yellow and black. They cannot measure any other color. But the moment you talk, I need to measure Pantone, then comes a spectrophotometer. Because there in a densitometer, now if I take a range of 400 to 700 nanometers of the visible region, if you remember the first photograph I showed you, Vibgyor, yeah, 400 to 700 nanometers. A filter in a densitometer could be only on a small patch. 3, that's it. What about the others color? Right? They are not measured. But a spectrophotometer covers the complete visible region of a human eye. So it's a blue or a greenish blue or a red or a bluish red or orangish red or a green, yellowish green, bluish green, orange, yellowish, orange, bluish, anything, reddish orange, anything. Any color that you want to measure can be measured using a spectrophotometer and not a densitometer. And the spectrophotometer may also give you the value that a densitometer does. And if it does, then the instrument is called as a spectrodensitometer. Simple? Densitometer, spectrophotometer, and third is a combination of both, spectrodensitometer. Simple, clear? Now what does a spectrophotometer do? Same. Everything fundamental remains the same. There's a light source, there's a substrate. Yeah? Now where there was a wheel, yeah, there is something called as a diffraction grating. Something called as a diffraction grating. Now this grating is basically helping the instrument to measure the whole visible region of the human eye, and not only those 3 filters which are available. Is it clear? And then the detector, which could be the same as a densitometer probably. Just for your understanding, it's different, but fundamentally it's the same. It's a detector. Yeah. So you have a light source, a substrate, a detector, which is nothing but a diffraction grating over here. That is the major difference between the two devices in the industry, a densitometer and a spectrophotometer. A densitometer cannot measure Pantone colors, neither for density dot gain, or the densitometer anyway cannot measure something called as LAB and delta E values. In Pantone colors, what is more important for you is not density probably. Density is important, I'm not denying the fact. But more important for you in a Pantone color is the LAB value of the color, the delta E value of the color. Like a KFC red, it's not cyan, magenta, yellow, black. It's a Pantone color, right? And if you print a wrong KFC red, will KFC accept it? No. So you need to find a delta E value. So a spectrophotometer only is the instrument which can help you to measure delta E values and LAB values. A densitometer cannot. Please register that in your mind. So next time when you call somebody who sells a spectrophotometer or a densitometer anywhere in the world, know what is the application first and what you want to measure, and then speak to him. Makes your life easy as well, right? I think you start wondering, अरे मेरे को तो किसी ने डेंसिटोमीटर बोला था और ये फोन पे तो स्पेक्ट्रोफोटोमीटर बेच रहा है, बड़ा महंगा बेच रहा है ये तो. डेंसिटोमीटर तो बड़ा सस्ता होता है, ये पागल अपने को बना रहा है. But the fact is that the densimeter doesn't measure it. उसको क्या है बेचना, वो तो बेच देगा आपको, पर आपका काम नहीं होने वाला है उससे. Then you will go back to him saying that boss, you sold me a wrong instrument, right? So remember this part. So these are various kinds of instruments. Again, I'm not getting too deep into it. Different kinds of instruments in the industry available. Yeah. So basics of color, spectrophotometer, densitometer, the difference. Now comes a very important phenomenon that, yeah.
So the spectrophotometer can also measure the density of the.
If it's a spectrodensitometer, then yes, it can. Only a spectrophotometer cannot.
So there's another device.
Yes. So I didn't show that image because it's the same. I mean, it's the same spectrophotometer, but has the functionality or the software functions to measure a densitometric function as well. So it's the same. Yeah. So one very important feature that is important for us to know is, okay, before that, anybody has a car over here? गाड़ी किसके किसके पास है यहाँ पे? Okay, one, only a lady, that's it? मेरे पास भी है. Who else? Second, third. क्या हल्लू हल्लू हाथ ऊपर आ रहा है आपका? टेंशन है क्या? मैं गाड़ी नहीं लूँगा आपका. So at least about 10 of us have a car over here, right? Okay. Have you banged your car sometimes anywhere? God forbidden. कभी नहीं. A great driver यार. Yeah, I can imagine that. My wife also does that. So sorry, but just a joke, okay? So yes, we do bang our car sometimes. कहीं घिस गया. So what do? अगर ज़्यादा खराब हो गया होगा, so we go to a local garage, yeah, and tell them यार इसको थोड़ा डेंटिंग पेंटिंग करवा देना, कॉमन लैंग्वेज थोड़ा डेंटिंग पेंटिंग करवा देना. एंड द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन वाज ये कलर मैच तो होगा ना? ही कॉन्फिडेंटली सेज 100% होगा, टेंशन ही मत लो आप. फाइन, यू गिव योर कार, शाम को आ जाना आप 3 बजे 4 बजे, यू गो सी द कार, बॉस क्या प्रिंट, क्या मस्त किया है, यू पे एंड यू कम बैक. फाइन, डन, एवरीथिंग इज वंडरफुल. इन द नाइट यू गेट डाउन, चलो एक राउंड मार के दे गाड़ी में, एंड यू फाइंड दैट दैट पार्ट डजंट मैच द होल बॉडी एट ऑल. हैव यू एवर सीन दिस हैपनिंग? Very common. I mean, even on the road on a normal day, if you go, you may find that the door is different from the whole body. वो समझते हैं कि गाड़ी में पक्का आदमी ने पक्का दरवाजे को ठोका हुआ है, उसका पेंटिंग हुआ है. किसी ने देखा ये बात? Nobody saw that. No. I'm surprised, boss. It's so common, so common. Second example, with respect to ladies, I would say, is that when you go to buy a blouse piece, which I have seen for years with my mother as well, you never see the color in the shop. You always come out, right? Why? Has anybody thought over it why? Exactly. What I'm coming to is basically this concept. So I wanted to give you an example because ये presentation actually I get bored यार. कोई मतलब नहीं है. It is important to interact more and give you examples. So this phenomenon that we see a color different under different light sources is called as metamerism. It's called as metamerism. When the car which the lady or somebody of us took a delivery in the afternoon, it looks perfectly matched. Why? Because it's a daylight. When you put the same car under a yellow light like this, you find that that patch looks different from the body. Why? Because it's a different illuminant. It's a different light source. The absorption of the color is different under that light source. So the reflection is also different. And hence you see two different colors. This phenomenon is called as metamerism. Yeah? I mean, this is slightly too technical, but then if you measure those colors, using a spectrophotometer or a spectrodensitometer, and you see the graph of those two colors, yeah, you find that there's something like this. If you measure the delta E, they may be the same, 0.5 delta E, perfect match if you calculate the delta E value. But if you check the graph, the reflectance graph, you will find something like this, which indicates they are crisscrossing each other. This also tells you that the raw material used in the original paint and the raw material used in the refinished paint is different. And they can never be the same. So logical, because an OEM paint is manufactured with a different process and a different set of colors. While a refinished paint which is available in a garage is completely of a different type and a make and everything. So the components in there, the pigments, basically the pigments, if you know what is a pigment is that part which gives the color to the ink. Yeah, that is different, and hence you see the difference in the color. So if you measure those two colors and see the graph, you see something like this. And if in all lighting conditions, if the lady is lucky, she says, boss, मेरे को विष्णु कामत जी ने बोला था यार ये कलर अलग दिखता है, मैं तुमको तभी पैसा दूंगी जब अलग अलग लाइट में ये सेम दिखेगा. And she tries out morning, afternoon, evening, and if they look the same, then it is called as isomeric matching. Means it's perfect. Boss, that color cannot look different at all. So try to understand that a delta E of this color, delta E of this color could be the same. The color on paper, on values is pass. But under different lights, they may look different. That phenomenon is called as metamerism. The two colors looking same under various light sources is called as an isomeric match. Isomeric matching is very rare as a fact. Yeah, we do most of the time we do a metameric matching, unfortunately. Yeah. In printing it doesn't happen much because we know what's the ink that we buy. So our manufacturer also uses the same ink. But sometimes, what can happen? You're doing a KFC and you're using, say, Kamath inks. Yeah? And I'm costly because I talk a lot. मैं बोलता है मेरा बात करने में पैसा लगता है यार, आपको मैं 50 रुपये ज़्यादा महंगा दूंगा. संतोष बोलते हैं, विहान बोलते हैं, विहान सिंह, संतोष सिंह, सर मैं आपको 100 रुपये सस्ता देता हूँ, सेम इंक दूंगा आपको मैं. You buy it. And I can guarantee you 99% that ink will turn out to be Metameric. Why? Because the component that I use to make my pigment, ink, may not be the same as the ink that he's, or the pigment that he's using. So, maybe you start getting complaints. अरे ये तो कलर अलग दिखता है. Then you think, अरे मेरा प्रोसेस तो सेम ही था, सब कुछ तो सेम था, डेल्टा भी मैच हो रहा है आपका. Then you start thinking, boss, where was the difference? Then you realize, oh, I changed my supplier. And that's where all the problems start. Clear? Absolutely clear? Wonderful, great. So the phenomenon of metameric matching is called as metamerism, which is, I mentioned that, yeah. Why they are metamerism, or why it leads to metamerism is something like this. Okay? A D65 light source has a curve like this. Okay, that's the same. Okay, this is illuminant A, which is that yellow light, has a graph like this. Okay, this is again this is a normal daylight which is available in the market, which they write as D65. All of them, if you look at it, are the same. They're completely different light sources, and hence, when the color is seen under these different light sources, they reflect in a different way, and hence you find a problem. Okay, perfect. So now, after understanding the basics of all the color, LABs and everything, types of matching, types of instruments, I'll just run you through a very brief about the kinds of instruments available in the industry today, or very few of them. I think I've missed one or two over here, but that should be fine. Now this is one of the most commonly used spectrodensitometer in the industry today. Most commonly used, most widely used, the most sold instrument today in the industry. This is a model called as Exact. Yeah, and it comes from a company called as X-Rite. Yeah, X-Rite is one of the leading companies in the world into color measurement, and the instrument is called as Exact. So this instrument is a spectrophotometer. It is, no doubt, but it's also a densitometer. So answer your question, sir. So this instrument is a spectrophotometer cum densitometer. So it does both. So why invest into two instruments? Invest into one, it does both for you. Yeah. So this will not only help you to measure your density, dot gain, trapping, gray balance functions, which is basically to CMYK colors, but will also help you to measure your Pantone colors, LAB, LCH, delta E values and everything. Not the right forum. We can talk later. Yeah. So, is that very clear? Yeah. So, this is a spectrodensitometer which helps you to measure your LABs and your densities and your dot gains as well. Yeah. So that's okay. Now, this is something which most of the people don't use. They say that I want to measure my density of cyan, magenta, yellow and black. So my next question to them, or my team's next question to them is, sir, आप कौन सा control strip print करते हैं? You know does anybody know what's a control strip? Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it, right? It's always on the top of a printing, yeah, from the left to the right, completely or full stretch. That's called as a control strip in printing, yeah. Now, you need to have this control strip printed on your material or your substrate or whatever that you're printing upon to measure color. Mainly your cyan, magenta, yellow and black for their density, dot gain, trapping functions. You need to have this control strip. Maybe for a spot color, even if you don't have it, it's still okay. Why? Because a spot color prints solid. I hope you understand, right? A spot color prints solid. A cyan magenta prints dots. They mix dots to make an image. So any patch, if you go and try to measure, you cannot measure it. Why? Because it's a mix of 4 dots. While a Pantone color is a solid patch. So if in the control strip there is no, or you're only doing Pantone, for example, you're not doing CMYK at all, which is not possible. But anyways, let's put a hypothetical situation where you're only doing Pantone. Then probably you don't need a control strip. Probably you don't need a control strip. Why? Because those Pantones are everywhere on the sheet, right? And those Pantones are all solid. So you can use a spectrophotometer on the image to measure the color. But a cyan, magenta, yellow, black, if they are printed as solid, again pure solid, cyan ka pata mara ya yellow ka pata mara, it's still fine. It's like a Pantone color again. But the moment you talk about a face color, you want to talk about an image which is made out of 4 colors, and you want to check whether I've printed the right density or not on that patch, you need to have a control strip at the top of that particular image, where you will put the instrument and measure individually what is the density of cyan, what is the density of magenta, what is the dot gain for cyan, what is the dot gain for magenta, yellow, black. Please understand that control strip is the basic of your printing. You need to print a control strip to control your color. That's the reason why it's called as a control strip. And people still expect to control the sheet without putting a control strip. Which people do. They do it wonderfully well. But then you need to have a control strip on your printing. Is it very clear? So density, I don't need to define a density. It's basically the ink deposition or ink thickness on a substrate that you print upon. Yeah. So you need to have patches like these which are, solids. So you have magenta, cyan, black, yellow, solid patch, 100% solid patch. That patch gives the value of density. Dot gain, again, I don't think so I need to explain dot gain, but just for information, it's basically that when you print, there's always a dot gain that happens. If you are printing a 50% dot, then it's never printed 50. It will print maybe 60, 65, 68, 62, 63. Sorry. So it's important to check what is that gain. Because if a 50 dot starts printing 70, and a 70 dot starts printing 85, and a 85 dot starts printing 98, then where does 90, 91, 92, 95 go? They're all gone. So then your image starts filling up. Right? So you need to have the right dot gains on your press. So you need to have those patches. Like for example, here you can see a solid cyan, a 80% cyan, a 40% cyan. I would measure these patches, 40, and find out what's the dot gain over there. Maybe the 40 is printed about 50, 52, 55. But if it's printed 60, I know there's something to be alarmed of. Something wrong somewhere. Either my plate is wrong, or my printing machine has too much of dot gain or too much of pressure, so my dots are kind of expanding more. So that gives you the importance of a dot gain. And today, in today's industry, if you ask me on a personal level, as Vishnu Kamath, not as AGS or a color specialist, but if you print or only control density and dot gain on a press, then practically the whole press is automatically controlled. Just control these 2 parameters and the whole press is beautifully running. Yeah? So it's important to have these patches on your control strip. You may skip these trapping samples and all. Today they are not much used at all. But density dot gain is important. Is this clear till here? Yeah, any confusion? Surely? Okay. This actually has no relevance today. It's a very old slide, but these are kind of the standard densities that you can try to print on various substrates. So this is paper type 1, paper type 2, paper type 4. I think paper type 3 is web, right? If I'm not mistaken. So it's not there over here. Yeah. So these are the standard densities that you can print. Your black, cyan, magenta, yellow and all. But I mean, it's okay. I mean, not so greatly widely used, but yeah, more or less they are in the same range. So it's like cyan is printed, say 1.55 in density, 1.50, 1.45, 1.05, and that's the dot gain acceptable. So on a 40% patch, you can still accept a 56% dot. But if it goes in more than 56, then there's a problem. Yeah? On a 80% dot, a 12% is acceptable. Means a 80% dot, if you get a value of say 90, 92, it's still okay. Your printing still perfectly fine. But if you go for 80% dot to 95, 96, then it's a problem. Yeah? So these are standard values that you can use as a reference point to print on your printing machines. Clear? So the Exact was basically a handheld instrument, handheld. Yeah? Measure one by one, one by one, one by one. But then there are also devices in the industry which are automated to measure the whole control strip. Now if I give you a 40-inch control strip and tell you to measure using that handheld instrument, I think it's going to take at least about 20-25 minutes to finish the whole 40-inch. 1 patch, 2 patch, 3 patch, 4 patch, 5 patch, and write down the value, write down the value, write down the value. Long time. So then came the next generation instruments called as auto tracking devices, which when you place, so if you look at this over here, the instrument is placed on the console of your printing machine, yeah, and the instrument automatically moves on the control strip just by a click of a button. Completely automatically. So a handheld which would have taken about 15-20 minutes to measure all the patches, this instrument does maybe in about 8 seconds. In 8 seconds, it will measure the complete control strip for all the parameters that are there on the control strip. So if you have a density patch, it will give you density values. If you have a dot gain patch, it will give you dot gains. If you have a trapping patch, it will give you a trapping. In that 8 seconds, it does everything. So that increases your speed. Because when you're printing and you have a load, production time is very important, right? So you can't afford to stop your machine for 15 minutes and measure your patches. चलो वो तो पहली बार आपने कर भी लिया, but that's not the end of it, right? You also need to ensure that during the production everything is okay, because at the start it may be good, but something went wrong in between, and in the middle of the production all your density and dot gains are going haywire. Are you going to stop your machine again for 15-20 minutes? Practically not possible. But with these devices you can practically measure every 200th or the 300th sheet. Just 8 seconds flat, and ensure that your whole production is matching to the first sheet that you said okay. Clear? It just moves on your control strip in 8 seconds and gives you all the result on the screen, on your computer screen. Yeah? So this device is basically called as an Easy Trax. This device is basically called as an Easy Trax automated scan reader. Again from a company called as X-Rite. Yeah? Then when we talk about printing, I think one of the most important things in the printing is the printing plate, right? The plate. As I mentioned earlier, if the dot on the plate is wrong, it leads to a lot of problems in your printing as well. So if on the plate the dot was supposed to be 50 and by mistake the dot has come out to be 55, what happens? You find that all your printing has gone blur, the sharpness has been lost, everything is a problem. Why? Because your plate is wrong. Now how do you check your plates? There's also a device to check plates the way that you can measure your printed samples. There's also a device to measure plates called as a plate reader. So this plate reader measures something like this, a control strip which is printed on the plate. I think if you pick up any plate today, you'll always find a wedge at the bottom of the plate, which normally goes inside your gripper, yeah, which is never printed basically. That wedge is used by this instrument called as a plate reader, IC plate, yeah, to measure and find out what is the dot on the plate. Is it correct? Okay, I shot a 50% dot. Is it 50? Or is it 51? Is it 55? Is it 54? Is it 49, 48? What is it? So this instrument can go right from about a 5% or a 3% dot up to 100% and tell you the complete value, so that if there's any error, you can go and, kind of reset the CTP, so that, or the whatever device you use, an image setter or a CTP or whatever it is, to get the right dot. So that your start process itself, if it goes wrong, then it's a whole problem everywhere. So that's about the instrumentation part, the basics of color, types of instruments, what instruments do we use in the industry. Yeah, till here, is it very clear? Anything that's going on your mind that's kind of bothering you, which you feel you need to ask? Yeah, please.
Actually, sir, we're using so many types of metallic color. So can you use exact medicine to measurement to density?
We cannot use an exact, but if you remember, I said in the beginning that I have missed about 1 or 2 instruments over here. Yeah, but then there are very much instruments which can help you to measure on metallized foils or aluminium foils, or for that matter metal. Yeah, an exact kind of device cannot be used. Exact spectrodensitometer is basically for non-metallized substrates. But we have a different range of instrument which is purely a spectrophotometer and not a spectrodensitometer. That device can measure on metallized foils or aluminium for that matter, perfectly accurately. Yeah? So there are instruments for that for sure, and very accurate instruments. So a few problems faced by the printer. And I'm sure I don't address even maybe 25% of it, but some problem that I thought is important here. So one is paper stock variation, which is very common. Lot to lot आपका paper का variation होता है, and you end up that अरे मैंने तो यार वो same combination डाला पर color अलग आ गया. Why? Because a lot of reasons for that probably. But then one of the reason is paper. You feel a paper थोड़ा bluish हो गया, थोड़ा yellowish हो गया paper, so the paper is the problem. Ink variation. I mean, you're buying ink from a dealer. पिछले बार जो आपको ink दिया, इस बार भी वही ink देगा, या वही टोन आएगा, आपका H value change नहीं होगा. किसको पता? We don't know. Yeah, that's important for us to know that. Only then can the ink variation be controlled. Density variation on the press, obviously. आपने set तो कर दिया machine, पर as you keep on printing, watering balance ऊपर नीचे हो गया, the density में variation हो गया, बहुत सारे problems हो गए. You need to keep on controlling the density and everything. And the last is dot gain. These 4 I have taken as important points which help you, kind of are normal problems on the printing press. I think main important are first 2, paper and ink. Now how to control them? Yeah, eliminating them is not possible because they are a part of our life. But at least we can control them and reduce the error as much as possible. There are softwares available in the industry, okay, which help you to understand the variation in the paper. Ensure that you make your own inks in-house. Then depending on the dealer to give you the ink. Yeah, so the software is basically called as an ink formulation software. Again, a very, very, very widely used software in the industry today. Okay, again, coming from a company called X-Write. Yeah, so ink formulation software is a software which helps you to ensure that you're accounting for all the paper variations that you get, and also helps you to make your own inks in-house. So if you need an orange ink, okay, and you have the basic inks with you in your stock, you can make your inks yourself with using the instrument and the software. Yeah, so if you look over here, I don't know whether it's clear till the back or not, but then that's the screen of the software. Okay, so what we do is that with the ink formulation is that you have those basic inks, maybe 12 or 14 basic inks of Pantone, which the ink manufacturer makes. What does the dealer do basically? He takes those inks, mixes them and makes a color and gives it to you. Yeah. So maybe a KFC red could be a combination of a blue and a red color, or maybe a orange and a red color. He mixes them up and makes that color for you. So can't you do that in-house? You can. Why not? But for that, sometimes you feel यार कौन करेगा वो सब यार, बहुत time लगता है उसको. It's not so. With these kind of softwares, your life becomes much more easier, much more simpler, much more faster. Because in a second, the software tells you that to match that color, what combinations you need to use from those basic inks that you have, yeah? And the amount that you need to use to get to that color. So for that, basically, first we need to ensure that we input. Now, you guys have joined printing college, right? Yeah. So you understand printing today. So how many years? I mean, 2 years, 3 years now? Yeah, about 2 years. Okay. When you joined the printing college, did you know even the P of printing? No, right? So how did you know about it? You read a book, the professor taught you. Yeah. So they fed you some information which you kind of accumulated in your mind, and then now you know what's printing, right? Exactly. The same way, the software doesn't know anything. The software doesn't know anything. It's like a raw mind. New kids coming in trying to know what is printing. So it doesn't know what's your ink. So what I need to do? I need to feed information to my software that look, I am using these 14 inks. I am using these 12 inks. White, pink, blue, brown, orange, red, purple, 2 types of yellows, 2 types of reds, 3 types of blues, whatever. I need to print those samples and input them into my software. Only then the software knows, now it says, okay, now I am 2 years in the printing, I know what is printing now. And then the software helps you back to know that, to make that color, what you need to mix. Now these kids are going to go back in the industry and give their knowledge back to the industry, right? That's the same way. That once you give the input to the software, that these are my basic inks, then the software will tell you, okay, I will use these basic inks to tell you how to make a recipe of a new Pantone ink from the Pantone book, or maybe a swatch given by the customer. Yeah? So for that you need to make certain drawdowns. And these drawdowns are something like, a 1% black and a 99% transparent, or a 10% black and a 90% transparent, or a 80% black and a 10% transparent. So when I say black, it could be any color, but the transparent remains the same. Transparent, I'm sure you know what's a transparent ink, right? You mix it to change the viscosity of your offset ink or reduce the strength of ink. Yeah. So that's how you make the database. So that's how I said for this purple it is 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64 and 100. So 64 of the purple and 36 of the transparent white has been mixed. A drawdown has been taken and measured inside the software using the spectrodensitometer or the spectrophotometer. That's the input. Yeah. Once you do that, then your life is easy. So I am a customer, I call you and say, I want to get my samples printed from you. You need to print Pantone 256C. So what do you do? Open up the Pantone book. Oh, that's the color. Oh, it is a yellow, for example. So what do? You take that yellow, you will measure it using the spectrophotometer or the spectrodensitometer. That data travels to the software. And now the software will, once you measure the color, the software will ask you the next question. That, okay, you want to match this ink, 256C. What is the substrate on which you want to match this color? Because in printing, substrate plays the most important role. So this problem of your substrate is taken care over here. Last time you may have used a board which was bluish, but now the lot that you have got is more yellowish. So what you do is that you pick up that board sample, you measure it, actually measure it using the spectrophotometer and tell the software that this Pantone 256C I want to match on this substrate of mine, not the old one. Getting my point? And then these are a list of all the colors. As I said, 3 yellows, orange, red, okay, magenta, green, violet, black, the Pantone colors. And then the software immediately calculates that for that substrate, for that particular color that you wanted to match, what ink needs to be used and how much of it needs to be used to get to the color. Which we used to do, or people in the industry did for so many years visually. अरे ये कलर बनाना है, थोड़ा येलो डाल, थोड़ा रेड डाल, थोड़ा कितना किसको भी नहीं पता है. चलो एक बार तो बना लिया, अब उसको रिप्रोड्यूस कैसे करें वापस, कोई कितना डाला किसी को भी पता नहीं है. And the whole just keeps on rolling round and round and round. But with this, it is bang on. So you measure the color, you measure the substrate, and the software exactly tells you that, okay, to make this particular pink or whatever the color is, you need to use a yellow 0.07 grams, or Rubin red 2.85 grams, or Rhodamin red 2.63 grams, and the transparent white, or the extender or whatever reducer you call it as 94.44 grams. When you pick up these colors, add, mix them, what you get is a shade which is very close to what you want.
Sir, can we use this software for metal ink also?
Yes, absolutely you can use it, and it's already being used in the industry today, very much, very effectively. Yeah. So that's how this software handles your issues about substrate, which is obvious from here because it measures your substrate, understands the color of your substrate, and then only gives you a formula. It also kind of addresses your issues with ink variation. Why? Because you're making your own ink in-house, so you precisely know what you've added into it, how much you've added into it, and what quantity you need. And most important part, this software also gives you information about metamerism. याद है metamerism? भूल गए? याद है ना? अलग अलग लाइट में अलग अलग दिखता है. A D65 over here shows value 0.0, which says that boss उस लाइट में तो perfect match है. But look at the bad part of it. A, illuminant A, it says delta E is about 4. What does that mean? That this color, when it is printed and checked with the Pantone book, in a daylight, it will pass. But if somebody sees that color under this light, it's a complete fail. Now to choose this formula or not, you can decide, because now here it shows only one recipe, but the software is so powerful that it may end up giving you about 25, 30, 40, 50, 100 recipes for the same color, which we humanly just cannot do it. But the software is so powerful that for the same color, it may end up giving you about, say, 25 to 30 different combinations to make the same color. And somewhere or the other, you will find a recipe where both these values match. And that's what you need to pick up to avoid metamerism in your printing. Is it clear? Or any confusion? Is it too hard to digest? I don't think so.
Because these kind of technologies are being used by these distemper people, right? What you do is they will hit the value.
Yeah.
They ask you to choose the color.
Yeah.
And then these people hit the value and they have 2-3 things put
Yeah.
together, and just like the water gate distemper,
Yeah.
put distemper together and then they mix it up. And
Yeah, that is happening in the paint industry today. In fact, those systems are from us only. So those machines that you see in the market, yes, are actually introduced by AGS in the market. As far as offsetting goes, it's difficult because of the viscosity of the ink.
Moreover, the here we have to differentiate would be in some more than less than a gram. So
Yes, so these machines normally have a accuracy of 0.07. Yeah? But coming back to your point, for liquid inks, there are dispensers available in the industry and people are already using it. But for offset inks, there's not much. It has to be physically done. So you need to weigh 0.07 gram, you need to weigh 2.85 gram on that butter paper on a balance, then remove it properly, mix it, and then take a drawdown, and then you measure it. Yeah? That's the only way out. So is it clear till here? Yeah? So this basically addresses your issues about your inks and your paper. And obviously, to address your issues about dot gain and density or other parameters, you need to use these kind of instruments. Either a densitometer if you're doing CMYK, or maybe a spectrophotometer if you're doing Pantone colors, or a spectrodensitometer if you're doing both. So once you use that, even your errors and your problems about density and dot gains are taken care of. Yeah, and it's always good. It's always good to print if you're doing purely CMYK kind of printing, not much into Pantone. Yeah, it's always good to print against the international standard. Yeah, again here we are not promoting any international standard at all. We are nowhere saying that an X standard is good or a Y standard is good or they are bad or anything. It's not at all like that. Yeah, but normally it is always good to match to international standards. In India also there are two types of standards available. One is a Gracol standard and an ISO standard. You can decide to go with any of these standards and try to match it. More commonly in the industry, in the offset, people use ISO 12647-2. Very commonly used standard in the printing industry and very well accepted worldwide. Yeah. So for much better printing, for much better controlled printing, right densities, right dot gains, try to print at a standard worldwide, which also helps you to maintain your machine in a very nice condition. Yeah. So that's all from my side. I've tried to cover everything as much as possible in a very nutshell. If I've missed on something, you're free to contact us. I have two colleagues of mine over here, Santosh and Vihans. They're also here to answer your questions, and they also have the spectrodensitometer exact with them. So if you're interested in having look at it, please come and talk to them. Yeah, they are color experts in the organization, and they are people who are certified as ISO guys. There's an organization called as UGRA. If probably you guys know UGRA. UGRA is based in Switzerland, and they are the body which give you certification that you can conduct ISO audits of printing presses. And now in the world there are about only 300 people, out of which these are the two. Okay, so these two have been certified by UGRA to assess ISO standards in the industry at printers. Yeah, so very knowledgeable guys. So you should talk to them if you have any queries. I'm still here. If you have any more queries, please do let me know. Thank you for your time and your patience. Thank you. I really hope so that you guys have understood it, because I've tried to make it as basic as possible. Because I could not make it even more basic than that. So thank you once again. Yeah, have a great evening.
Light standard, you said that the light difference is A type, B type.
Yeah.
So the ones which are used on the printing machines, which are kept on the side, the tube light.
Yeah.
So that one also you have to take into account.
Yes.
So the
It's
two
always preferred to have that under D50 light source.
that's
D50.
the normal light.
That's the normal light source used in the printing industry. It may not be good for the other industries, but for the printing industry, that's the light source you need.
And the 2 degree, 10 degree, what you were explaining.
Yeah.
So that 2 degree, will it be possible?
No, that's only a part of the instrumentation.
So that wouldn't matter what.
No. With visual assessment, it's only the light source that matters. Yeah. But nothing more than that. When you do an instrumentation, then you need to set these as 2 degree or 10 degree, what light condition you want or illuminant you want, you need to define
While measuring it.
while measuring it using the instrument. Because let's assume that you have an international buyer. When he would specify a color to you, he will specify it to you that under what observer angle he has measured the color, under what illuminant he has measured the color, and under what illuminate or under what color equation would he check the delta E value when you send the sample back to him.
But now there are certain companies which told you that they just give you a sample of what.
Then you need to define your own internal standards.
That has to be done.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sir, when we have a standard jobs, let's say Airtel, Flyer or Brochure,
Sorry, I can't hear you.
when we have a standard jobs like Airtel, Flyer or Brochure,
Okay.
it is a very standard job. You have
Yeah.
also given an example of KFC, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so first time somehow we are able to print, but again the same job comes second time to the press, we are not able to match the quality. And when we don't have this ink formulation, this software which you are talking about, what should be our approach and what should be the practical approach to maintain the same color quality?
See, what you simply need to do at your end is at least have a spectrodensitometer at your end.
Okay.
Today what happens is that you get the ink, you put on the machine, start printing, and then start fighting.
Now we are using the same substrate, same ink, and then again we are not able to maintain the quality.
Again coming back to the same point. Do you have a guarantee that it's the same substrate? First question. Are you 200% sure that the ink that you have got is the same as last time?
Same batch number and then same.
I agree on that part. That's the second question. Third question. Is your machine in the right condition now?
Yeah, that's good.
That's the third. So there are a lot of parameters involved. Now, at least to control, you can control two things for sure. One is your machine. You can do a regular maintenance, how to control and check that the dot gains are okay, the rollers are okay, the torque is okay, everything is okay. As far as color goes, you need to have a device which can help you control it. Now, you say that it is the same, but nobody knows what it is. Do you know what is the LAB value of your white paper that you printed last time? You don't know. You've done it visually, but what you see, what I see is different. The operator does matter. I printed the earlier lot. Today somebody else prints it. He sees the color in a different way. He prints his way. But when you have an instrument on the printing machine, maybe just a handheld, he doesn't have to use his brain. He just says, boss, Airtel का LAB value ये है. मुझे कुछ भी करो पर मुझे वही LAB लाना है बस. Then you see, you will have no variation. It's all about control and using the right devices and instruments to control.
Excuse me, what are the differences between the models of Exact and i1 Pro 2 X-Ray?
One major difference is that the i1 Pro 2 doesn't have an on-screen software. You need to connect it to a computer. While the Exact has an onboard quality control software, so it's a complete instrument by itself. And there are small here and there. The repeatability, when you say, when I measure the same patch 10 times, the repeatability factor is much more accurate in an Exact than in an i1.
So now I'm a small scale printing house and my job is very small, limited job, and not many colors are being used, like a very limited job. So what would you recommend me to use? A densitometer, a spectrophotometer,
Again, coming back to the same, my next question would be, do you print time?
Not
If you say no, then you just need a very simple densitometer. Very simple, basic densitometer. Any more questions?
So what is the standard density of a gravure printing in each color?
There's nothing as standard in a gravure. There is obviously.
You say that
I'm not saying there is no
sign,
standard.
sign is 1.55. Is it preferable to?
But then if you look at it in a gravure printing, it's more of Pantone, which is printed. So for a Pantone, anyway, worldwide there is no standard. For CMYK, there could be one, I believe, because ISO also has a gravure standard. That -2, could be -6 or -7 or -1. that's gravure printing standard. But I have no idea about the values that you need to print. Actually, according to me, there are no values for gravure. That's what I personally feel.
Profile which is enough for time space, but then it's very vicious.
I don't think so. Because it all depends upon the gravure, your depth of your cells. There's so many parameters involved in the gravure. You know, your doctor blade cutout, there's so many things. So I don't think so there's a standard for gravure as such, for density values. I could be wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong.
In flexo printing, do we have these kind of measurements done?
Yeah, of course. In fact, flexo printing, there are a lot of online color measurements available in the industry. So people prefer to use online color measurements, but they are very expensive. So people who don't get into online measurements, then they would kind of, I know it's kind of a post-mortem, but then after the printing is done, they kind of, check it, or they maybe kind of print, then stop the machine, go to the roll, use a handheld instrument and just kind of check one or two spots and keep on printing. So it's very much done in the flexo as well. And wherever there's color, you have to.
Like in offset, we have seen because consoles are there wherein they check everything. But flexo industry, wherever I visited, I could not see that.
Yeah, they use online. What I have seen, if you go to any of the standard flexo presses, they would have an online color measurement checking done. Sometimes it is online on the machine, or sometimes they would take the whole roll, put it on the checking machine, and it just keeps on checking and unrolling and rolling it back. It's like that's what it's like a post-mortem done. But then it's still better because but those machines also check your defects. So they check for a dot or a kind of a area which is not to be gone along with the printing. So it also rejects that. Any more questions? Thank you.
I would like to thank Mr. Vishnu Kamat on behalf of Sequence Samjo, BMPA, Print Week and SIS GST staff and all the audience over here. Thank you for attending. Thank you for attending the Sequence Samjo session. The next Sequence Samjo session will be on 5th of March at GIPT Institute from 3 p.m. which would be held by Mr. Rajesh Banerjee of Toyo Inc. and will speak on the topic troubleshooting in offset press. I would request you to attend this session. Thank you very much.
I think you should attend that because it's a kind of a continuation to what I said. So you should listen to it.
Rajesh Banerjee is always there. Like,
Yeah,
if you have to know about offset and thing, he's always
very much. Thank you.